You've heard the voices. You've seen the crocodiles in bomb vests and ballerinas with cappuccino heads. But where did it all come from, and why can't you stop thinking about it? This is your complete, unfiltered, espresso-soaked guide to the internet's most unhinged aesthetic, Italian Brainrot. The internet has always had its oddities, planking, rage comics, Harlem Shake, the Ice Bucket Challenge, but every so often, a digital phenomenon emerges that feels less like a trend and more like a fever dream. That's Italian Brainrot. It's not just a meme, not just a joke, but a contagious aesthetic virus that infected the short-form corners of TikTok and rewired our understanding of absurdity, one AI-generated crocodile bombardier at a time. To understand Italian Brainrot, we first have to start with the term brainrat. It didn't originate with Italy. It was born from Gen Z meme culture to describe the experience of mindlessly consuming content so absurd, so contextless, and so repetitive it starts to decay your higher cognitive functions in a good way. Think of watching a 5-second TikTok loop of a man in a Spider-Man costume screaming while doing a backflip into a kiddie pool. It's stupid, but it scratches something in the brain. That's brainrat. By 2024, brainrat had become an affectionate insult. I have brainrat was the meme world's version of I can stop watching this, even though it's making me dumber. It was the mental wallpaper of a generation overwhelmed by information, chaos, and comedy that no longer needed a punchline. The aesthetic of rot wasn't about decay, it was about comfort and nonsense. And in early 2025, this nonsense found its most surreal incarnation, Italian Brainrot. The spark that ignited the cultural inferno was a TikTok video uploaded on January 13, 2025, by user @EasyBurger401. It featured a lopsided AI-generated image of a shark with 3 legs. Wearing Nike sneakers, standing on cobblestone streets under a dripping neon crucifix. The voiceover. A grainy, deep, fake Italian accent muttering tralala, Orivato dal, Vaticano, per distrugger, Itui sone, latte sone. Translated loosely, tralala, tralala, has arrived from the Vatican to destroy your dreams. Accompanied by opera music and church bells, the video made no sense, but it didn't need to. It lingered. It lingered. Within days, Trallalero Tralala had been reposted thousands of times. With users remixing the sound, editing the shark into different backgrounds, and adding new nonsensical Italian names, the format exploded. Other creators joined in, birthing characters like Bombardiero, Crocodilo, Don Luca, and Ballerina Cappuccina. Each video followed a similar structure. Bizarre visuals. Fake Italian AI voiceovers and cryptic religious political melodramatic phrases delivered with operatic intensity. You weren't supposed to understand it. You were supposed to feel it like déjà vu in a Vatican gift shop, or the ghost of Feline haunting a meme page. What made Italian Brainrot especially powerful was its use of AI-generated media. These weren't real actors in costume, they were digital fever hallucinations born from tools like Midjourney, DALL-E, and VO3. The aesthetic was uncanny, too sharp, too clean, and yet somehow vintage. Saints wept pixelated tears. Cappuccinos wore ballet shoes. Glitches and filters made it feel like an old VHS tape possessed by a demon who once studied film in Naples. This was algorithmic comedy at its peak. Didn't follow narrative. Logic, it followed engagement logic. Short, weird, hypnotic. The joke wasn't in the punchline. The joke was the loop. Viewers found themselves replaying 12-second clips for minutes at a time, trying to decipher meaning where none existed. Why does the shark only have 3 legs? Is Ballerina Cappuccina a saint or a weapon? Who is Pasquale, and why is he always screaming? Italian Brainrot was both a product of and rebellion against hyper-optimized content, where traditional media demanded clarity, pacing, structure, and character arcs. This new form thrived on ambiguity, chaos, and meme speed evolution. In some ways, it was post-ironic comedy, aware of its own stupidity, but sincere in its commitment to the bit. It mocked itself, but it also believed in itself. It wasn't trying to be good, it was trying to be rot. Then came TikTok's role. If Instagram filters polished our lives, and YouTube taught us how to fix dishwashers or dissect geopolitics, TikTok was the chaotic brainstem, pushing what was sticky, what was hypnotic. The Apps For You page didn't care about narrative, It cared about engagement seconds, and Italian Brainrot delivered. Its clips were short. Its sounds were addictive. Its visuals were shareable. Comment sections turned into lore forums. Stitch videos became remix rituals. The shark gained a brother. The ballerina got her own opera. By February 2025, Italian Brainrot had spread beyond TikTok. YouTube Shorts were flooded with rot edits. Twitter threads attempted to explain the deep lore of the Vatican Shark Wars. Instagram accounts popped up to catalog every known character in the Brainrot cinematic universe. And of course, meme historians began writing Medium articles, dissecting it as a critique of late-stage capitalism. Digital decay and post-religious imagery in Gen Z humor? Was it that deep? Maybe, or maybe people just liked hearing someone say Pasquale Nulu over church bells and opera. But one thing was clear. Italian Brainrot had become more than a meme. It was an aesthetic, a language, a collective joke that no one quite got, but everyone wanted in on. It didn't matter what Trolero Trolala was supposed to mean. What mattered is that everyone felt it. Like a communion wafer made of pixel static and espresso foam. And just like that, the rot had begun to spread. To understand Italian Brainrot, you must first abandon the search for logic. It isn't a genre, it's a recipe. One passed down from the fevered minds of Gen Z internet shamans. Its ingredients are measured not in tablespoons, but in trauma, opera, cigarette smoke, and glitch artifacts. This is cooking without a recipe. A dish served under flickering neon and narrated by a faceless AI voice that calls you Pasquale. The unholy formula, often joked about but never officially confirmed, goes something like this. 30% Catholic trauma, 30% mafia noir, 30% espresso foam, 10% crocodile. Let's break that down. Catholic trauma. At the heart of Italian Brainrot is the lingering presence of Catholic iconography, not reverent, not mocking, but haunted. It's the guilt you can't name, the memory of incense in your lungs, the way sunlight hits a stained glass window in a half-forgotten church. The aesthetic is drenched in saints, bleeding statues, golden halos, and relics that weep. Characters stand under crucifixes not as worshippers, but as rogues and martyrs. Even the most absurd figures like Ballerina Cappuccino are backlit like divine apparitions. Their ridiculousness is sacred. Everything is filtered through a spiritual delirium. Prayers become threats. Latin chants loop backwards. There is always a looming suggestion that God is watching, but no one is sure if he's laughing or weeping. Noir next. Add a generous pour of 1970s mafia film energy. Not just The Godfather, but its descendants and parodies. Picture a man in a long trench coat, standing in the rain, cigarette dangling from his lips, holding a rosary in one hand and a meat cleaver in the other. He's either about to repent or commit a federal crime, possibly both. Italian Brainrot borrows this aesthetic wholesale. Characters wear long coats, drive vintage Fiats, and vanish into alleys that lead nowhere. Dialogue, when it exists, is whispered through clenched jaws and set to a soundtrack of vinyl crackles and distant police sirens. Even the AI voices seem like they're retrying to channel a drunk Al Pacino, filtered through a broken Google Translate. The noir energy makes the absurdity feel grounded. A crocodile dropping bombs from a Vespa? Of course, that's just Tuesday in Palermo. Espresso foam, this part is harder to explain. The espresso foam is not literal coffee. It's the aesthetic texture of Italian Brainrot. Imagine the feeling of being too caffeinated at 1 a.m. while scrolling TikTok in the dark. You're jittery, you're laughing, you're confused, you're in love with something stupid. Espresso foam is the frothy, over-the-top visual polish that coats every piece of rot. Videos are hyper-saturated. Contrast is dialed up. Faces glow too much. Edges shimmer. Everything looks like it was edited in a rush, but with bizarre precision. There's a warmth to it, but also decayed, like coffee left out overnight in a gold-rimmed porcelain cup. This layer gives the rot its hypnotic gloss. It's what makes a three-legged shark in Nike's look cinematic. 10% crocodile, this is the wild card. The 10% crocodile refers to the inexplicable animal hybrid aspect of the trend. Crocodiles in trench coats. Sharks in leather. Pigeons wielding knives. Nobody knows where they came from more, why they keep showing up, but they do. Repeatedly. The animals aren't cute. They're weirdly dignified. They aren't mascots. They're protagonists. Bombardiero Crocodilo is a veteran of a war that never happened. Trololo lost a leg to betrayal. These creatures have lore, even if it's made up on the spot in the comments. This element adds the unpredictability needed to keep the rot from feeling stale. You never know what's coming next. A parrot with stigmata. A squid in a suit confessing to crimes against pasta. The answer is always yes. Recurring motifs, the ingredients form the base. But it's the motifs, the spices, that give Italian Brainrot its signature scent. Switchblades. Always shown in slow motion, gleaming under yellow streetlights. No one uses them, but everyone has one. Trench coats. Worn by crocodiles, saints, grandmothers, baristas. Often billowing. Always soaked in rain. Rain. Essential. It never pours. It drizzles dramatically. Rain is how you know something important is about to happen. Pasta, usually uneaten. Shown on cracked porcelain, sometimes bleeding. Broken saints. Glitched out statues. Haloed figures with missing eyes. Angels that cry AU-generated tears. Each motif is an inside joke shared across hundreds of videos and accounts. The community doesn't explain them. It just builds around them, stacking meaning on top of absurdity until it all feels ancient and inevitable. Visual language. Italian Brainrot videos are a masterclass in visual chaos. The common tools of the trade include yellow-tinted filters. Everything looks like it was filmed under a Sicilian sun that hasn't set in a decade. Glitch overlays. VHS artifacts. Static blips. Framed tears. Used like punctuation marks. Zooms and repeats. Eyes zoom in. Statues repeat blinking. Loops emphasize the absurdity until it becomes gospel. For vintage fonts. Think Trajan Pro, but with a wine stain. Subtitles are never needed, but always there. These visual choices mimic the feeling of watching a bootleg DVD of a forgotten Italian horror film dubbed over by an AI priest on ketamine. And somehow it works. Sound design. Sound is half the rot. Every video is stitched with bizarre specific choices. Opera samples, usually rising crescendos with no resolution. Church bells, loud, distorted, always mistimed. Voiceovers, deep male AI voices, faking an Italian accent that sounds vaguely Eastern European. They say things like, Pasquale has seen the future and it is full of knives. Do not trust the cappuccino ballerina. Esplosioni del Vaticano. Run, piccolo bambino. Sound design isn't about clarity, it's about texture. The voices sound like they're coming from a cathedral speaker 5 streets away, underwater. You don't need to understand the words. You just need to feel the rot in your spine. Fashion and iconography. No Italian Brainrot character is complete without an outfit that looks like it was stolen from a priest, a hitman, and a retired clown all at once. Oversized coats, often belted, sometimes bulletproof, always dramatic. Religious medals layered, often glowing, sometimes levitating. Sunglasses at night, worn indoors, in the rain, or during confession. Turtlenecks, a must, even for animals. Style isn't about coherence, it's about drama. Characters dress like they expect to be both canonized and arrested in the same evening. In short, the rot is an alchemy. It's part visual art, part meme, part fever dream. The ingredients shouldn't make sense together, but they do. Because Italian Brainrot doesn't ask for understanding. It demands surrender. Once you accept that a cappuccino ballerina with knives 4 feet can be your main character, you're ready. Italian Brainrot may have started as an aesthetic and absurdist blend of espresso-fueled nonsense and AI glitches, but it quickly evolved into something stranger. Lore. The characters birthed from the rot weren't just punchlines. They were mythic, haunted, revered, and reposted like saints of a digital religion. Comment sections became scripture. Fan art became doctrine. And every new TikTok entry added another brick to the cathedral of chaos. Let us meet the central figures, those who shaped the mythology and infected our feeds with their incomprehensible yet unforgettable presence. Trolero Trolala. The originator of the rot began with him. Trolero Trolala was the first, the prophet, the prototype. Uploaded in January 2025 by a TikTok user at EasyBurger401, Trolero appeared as a 3-legged shark in Nike sneakers, standing upright on a cobbled Italian street with a halo of cigarette smoke. He blinked once slowly and, Then the screen glitched, looping his entrance to a distorted opera track. The voiceover. A gravelly, a generated Italian accent muttering, "Tralalo, tralalo a tornado, dal Vaticano, con il segreto, del cause eterno." Translation. Tralalo Tralala has returned from the Vatican with the secret of eternal chaos. That line was reposted millions of times. People stitched it into cooking videos, dance edits, even school presentations. Tralero became more than a meme, he was an avatar of divine nonsense. Some said he had lost his fourth leg in the Vatican bombing of '86. Others claimed he was a reincarnated saint, excommunicated for stealing espresso from the Pope. No version was official. All versions were canon. His legacy? Every Brainrot character that followed was a spiritual descendant of Tralalero. He didn't just start the trend, he became its center of gravity. Bombardiro Crocodilo, the soldier of no nation. Enter the next rot legend, Bombardiro Crocodiloa, crocodile and a bomber. Jacket with a cigarette clamped between his teeth and a fanny pack stuffed with fake passports. His videos always included explosions in the background, or strikes, burning churches, or a raining cloud of ravioli, the voiceovers. Gritty and cryptic. Bombardiro Crocodilo, non-combat per soldi, combat per Pasquale. Bombardiro Crocodilo doesn't fight for money. He fights for Pasquale. Who was Pasquale? No one knew. But everyone agreed he needed to be avenged. Bombardiro's aesthetic was pure post-Soviet mafia noir meets cartoon Animal Planet. His walk cycle was janky, his jaw glitched when he spoke, and yet he had gravitas. Fans created entire timelines for his imaginary war crimes. Others drew him shirtless, covered in saint tattoos, holding a rosary like a machine gun. In Brainrot circles, Bombardiro represented rage, controlled chaos. He wasn't here to entertain, he was here to detonate the algorithm. Ballerina Cappuccina, the dancer of sin, if Tralalero, was the prophet, and Bombardiro, the warrior. Ballerina Cappuccina was the saint. Or maybe the heretic. She first appeared as a glowing AI render of a ballerina with a cappuccino cup for a head. Foam spiraled from her crown like a halo. Her arms were elegant. Her feet, inexplicably, were stilettos carved from stained glass. Her dance, a hypnotic loop of pirouettes inside a church that flickered between real and digital. The voiceovers were cryptic poetry. Non fidarti, della ballerina, tabalato, solitaire, ia ha sentido Dio ritter. Do not trust the ballerina. She danced on the altar and heard God laugh. Fans immediately latched onto her tragic divinity. Was she a holy weapon? A failed experiment? A ghost? No one knew. But her aesthetic was unmistakable. Glitchy cathedral lighting, golden crosses, rain that fell upwards. Her sound design included opera arias, backward Gregorian chants, and the faint hiss of a coffee machine. She became the patron saint of beautiful confusion. People began using her name in prayers, ironically at first. Then, not so much. Don Luca and Father Emilio. The twin faces of faith and fire. Where there is sin, there must be confession. That's where Don Luca and Father Emilio came in. These two characters often appeared in the same videos or were merged in fan edits. Both were chain-smoking men in oversized trench coats, usually standing under lamplight in alleys that led nowhere. One wore a priest's collar, the other wore a blood-stained apron. Sometimes they were brothers, sometimes they were enemies. Occasionally, they were the same man viewed from different dimensions, their roles undefined, their aura unmistakable. Father Emilio's voice was always tired, muttering half-psalms and cigarette brands. Padre Emilio ha smesso di credere quando la Madonna ha iniziato a parlar in inglese. Father Emilio stopped believing when the Madonna started speaking in English. Don Luca, meanwhile, often delivered threats that sounded like scripture. Don Luca conos il to peccato, a che quello che non hai ancora commesso. Don Luca knows your sin, Evan, the one you haven't committed yet. They were the law in a lawless church. Their presence in any video meant drama was coming and salvation was optional. The expanding mythos, fan-led lore and chaos as more creators joined the Brainrot movement. The cast of characters exploded. But unlike typical meme cycles, these new additions weren't replacements. They were additions to the lore. The community treated Italian Brainrot like a growing pantheon. New entries included Signora Mozzarella, a ghostly nonna who floats and whispers pasta recipes that double as death threats. Pasquale the Screamer, an off-screen character always referenced but never seen. He is perpetually in danger, always screaming, and always vital to the plot. Zebra di Sangha, a blood-splattered zebra in sunglasses and communion robes. No one knows her origin. Everyone fears her. The mythos expanded through fan accounts, lore videos, fake documentaries, and even rot threads on Twitter explaining timelines, deaths, and betrayals that never actually happened. The fiction became canon through repetition. It was participatory surrealism. Meme meets multiverse. Legacy of the lore bearers, these characters didn't just represent archetypes. They shaped the visual grammar of Italian Brainrot. When you saw a trench coat, you thought Don Luca. When a shark limped across a frame, you felt Trollero's presence. They became digital saints, representing an emotion, an energy, an absurdity. Like all good lore, it wasn't just told, it was lived. Users created rot names for themselves. Teenagers walked around schools yelling Pasquale Nuwu, like it meant something. Teachers begged for explanations. Parents blocked. TikTok. None of it worked. The characters had already entered the collective consciousness. They weren't just memes anymore. They were icons. If Italian Brainrot were a religion, then sound would be its scripture uttered, not in sacred temples. It looped endlessly on TikTok For You pages at 2 a.m., while the visual aesthetic of the rot may be defined by cigarette smoke, trench coats, and statues weeping tomato sauce. It's the sound that seals the madness. That mad, echoing, broken voiceover is what crawls into your skull, lives there rent-free, and makes you scream Pasquale Nuwu out loud in the middle of maths class for no reason. This is not just background noise. This is rotcore audio, a genre of sonic chaos, handcrafted by A as N, memlords alike. And once you've heard it, you're never quite the same again. Voices from the rise of fake Italians. Every great piece of Italian Brainrot content features an AI voiceover. Always male, always deep, always vaguely Italian but not really Italian. It's a voice trying to sound like Don Corleone with a cold filtered through a tin can and bounced off a church bell. These voices don't narrate, they proclaim. They speak in riddles, in half-formed declarations, in phrases that sound like they should make sense. But don't. You hear? Esplosioni del Vaticano, Pasquale Accatuto, Il Cappuccino, Ha Gradato, Idio Ha Resposto, Signora Mozzarella, Ha Dimenticato, Il Cados, Nuclear. It's not Italian. It's Rotaliana hybrid dialect created by Eleven Labs voice synthesis, filtered through broken Italian grammar. It's mashed together with Catholic iconography, mafia tropes, and espresso machine noises. Fans began transcribing these nonsense sermons into rot scripture. TikTok comment sections turned into command response rituals. Pasquale, Squally, Nuwu. Pasquale was never real. He was a state of mind. He screamed so we didn't have to. The voice isn't just a tool, it's a character. It represents the collective subconscious of a cursed Vatican AI trained on nothing but mafia movies and wine-stained poetry. Signature phrases, the meme language of the rot, by mid-2025. Certain phrases had become so widespread they effectively replaced normal human communication in some corners of the internet. A few of the most viral include Tutti Frutti Explosion, Del Vaticano, loosely, fruit explosions from the Vatican, origin unknown. Possibly referencing a fictional Vatican fruit stand blowing up. More likely, it just sounded right. Pasquale knew. Now the foundational scream of the rot Pasquale is never seen. He is always in danger. Sometimes he's a boy, sometimes a dog, sometimes a cappuccino. He is the eternal victim and the eternal meme. Signora Mozzarella, ha mentito. Translation. Mrs. Mozzarella lied. About what? No one knows. But she definitely did. La ballerina ha ballato sul sangue di Dio. The ballerina danced on the blood of God. Probably referencing ballerina cappuccina. Possibly referencing your last brain cell slipping away. Ow. These catchphrases transcended their original contexts. People started spray painting them on school lockers. Merch was made. Soundboards created. One college student even tried to use Pasquale New as the opening line in a creative writing thesis. He passed echo, reverb, reverse. The audio toolkit of madness, the sound design of Italian Brainrot videos, is not high-tech. In fact, the roughness is part of the charm. It's audio post-production by way of glitch art. Think. Heavy echo and reverb. Every voice sounds like it is coming from the back of an empty cathedral, recorded on a toaster, then played on a broken speaker. It gives the audio a ghostly, spiritual feel, like you're hearing the voice of Saint Tony the pizza angel echoing through time. Reverse audio. Entire phrases or sound effects are played backwards like satanic messages in old vinyl. You'll hear a beautiful opera aria that suddenly rewinds, or a sentence that ends before it begins. It makes your brain itch in the best way. Slow-mo screams. Nuwu isn't just screamed, it's dragged, pitch shifted, distorted until it becomes less of a word and more of a primal digital lament. Layered sounds, voiceovers stack on top of church bells, espresso machine hissing, wine glasses clinking, distant gunfire, Gregorian chants and pigeons cooing. It's like attending mass in a war zone, inside a glitchy fever dream. Rot loops. The new lullaby, there's something uniquely sinister about the way these sounds loop. A TikTok clip might be only 7 seconds long, but it plays over and over. The scream of Pasquale, or the opera crescendo becoming a mantra. You don't notice the repetition until you're 10 minutes in. Starring died at your screen, muttering Bombardiro Crocodilo was framed, to yourself like it's a legal fact. These loops are designed to rot your brain, and we mean that in the most affectionate way possible. It's audio minimalism pushed to its maddest extreme. No context, no development, just endless sonic texture and poetic chaos. For some, it's annoying. For others, it's calming. The repetition becomes white noise. It's like a meme-based ASMR, except instead of tingles, you get Catholic dread and a sudden urge to learn Italian slang you'll never use. When the rot spilled into real life, the sounds of Italian Brainrot didn't stay confined to the internet. Soon, teachers were hearing students randomly yell Tutti Frutti Explosion-y. During class presentations, university choirs attempted to perform a generated Gregorian memes. Wrote Pasquale special on their menus, complete with 3 espresso shots and a side of existential dread. One London school banned the use of the word mozzarella after too many students insisted she had lied about the prophecy. Another reported a student who insisted his AI voice assistant was possessed by Don Luca. Even public transport wasn't safe. Commuters were caught playing rot videos on full volume in quiet carriages, leading to confused glances and quiet giggles. There were reports of brain rot sound rituals being played during house parties, where everyone had to scream Pasquale New on beat. It was the sound of a shared hallucination, but somehow, everyone was in on the joke. From meme to music, brain rot as sonic genre. By mid-2025, the rot sound evolved into something resembling a music genre. Producers began sampling AI voice lines and layering them into EDM tracks, industrial remixes, and even ambient meditations. Playlists titled Brainrot Soundscapes for Sleep, Gregorian Drill FT Ballerina Cappuccina, Don Luca Lo Fe to Pray. Slay 2 popped up across Spotify and YouTube. It wasn't just audio anymore. It was auditory world building, a fictional universe conveyed not by dialogue or narration, but by rhythm, reverb, and rotting echoes. In the end, it's the sound that stays. You may forget the shark with 3 legs. You may forget the exact details of the mozzarella prophecy, but that voice, the groaning, echoing Fekelian whisper from hell, it lives in your skull now. And in the distance, just beneath the cathedral bells and cappuccino foam, you'll always hear it. Pasquale New. By the time Italian Brainrot had reached its peak saturation in early to mid-2025, it had transformed from a niche meme into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, one that left whiplash in its wake. It was no longer confined to TikTok loops, and absurd AI renders started to bleed into classrooms, galleries, fashion, and public discourse. What began as a joke, crocodile in a trench coat screaming about the Vatican soon became a mirror, a parody, and a punch to the cultural gut all at once. It was hard to tell where the satire ended and sincerity began. Spaghetti Western meets Tumblr meets PS2, Cutscene: the aesthetic roots of Italian Brainrot form a surreal trinity. Spaghetti westerns. Early 2010s, Tumblr aesthetics, and the uncanny animations of mid-2000s PlayStation 2 cutscenes. The spaghetti western influence is all over the characters. Don Luca standing silently in a dusty courtyard. Crocodilo dramatically flicking a cigarette in slow motion. Everyone looks like they're in the middle of a standoff, even if they're just ordering pasta. Then there's the Tumblr core layer. Golden filters. Religious iconography. Glitch art. And Catholic guilt wrapped in Gothic poetry. It's a mood board of tragedy and irony, where saints cry digital tears and every character seems one espresso away from a breakdown. Finally, we have the PlayStation 2 effect. Every Rot character moves with the animation logic of a 2004 action game. Their walk cycles are stiff, their eyes don't quite blink at the right time. And the lighting always looks like it was rendered on a toaster. It's nostalgic, uncanny, and oddly comforting, like watching cutscenes from a game you think you remember, but never actually played. This blend of styles results in an aesthetic that feels both ancient and digital. Divine and cursed, familiar and deeply, deeply wrong. It's what happens when you throw Catholicism, mafia cinema, Tumblr trauma, and broken technology into a blender and then forget to put the lid on. Catholicism reimagined as aesthetic chaos, one of the most defining and controversial elements of Italian Brainrot is its irreverent use of Catholic imagery. Crosses, rosaries, popes, saints, churches, altars, all of it is fair game. But instead of solemn reverence, the Rot presents these symbols in a dizzying swirl of parody, confusion, and distorted beauty. Characters like ballerina cappuccina, pirouette in cathedrals that glitch in and out of reality. Don Luca recites psalms while loading a revolver. Statues of the Virgin Mary are edited to blink in slow motion, tears replaced by espresso drips. To the Rot community, this is aesthetic play part of the absurdist fun. To outsiders, especially those raised in or connected to Catholic faith, it's often jarring. Some see it as blasphemy, others see it as catharsis. For many, it's both. The key isn't mockery, it's recontextualization. Italian Brainrot doesn't mock Catholicism as much as it remixes it. The church isn't the villain, the hero, or the message. It's just scenery. Emotional wallpaper for a generation raised on both sacraments and memes. Criticism, blasphemy, politics, and cultural appropriation of chaos. As with any viral trend, backlash arrived quickly, and it was varied. Religious groups were among the first to speak up. Some saw the trend as a blatant mockery of sacred traditions, citing the casual use of altar scenes, fake popes, and characters like Saint Pasquale of the machine gun as examples of cultural degradation. A few even pushed for content takedowns, though platforms mostly ignored the noise. Others criticized the political undertones of the Rot, Crocodilo's military imagery, the fictional Vatican bombings, and references to fake scandals involving religious institutions made some viewers uneasy. Was this comedy or commentary? And if it was commentarian, what? Then came the wild card, critiques of chaos appropriation. Some academics argued that Italian Brainrot commodified cultural trauma, historical violence, and sacred imagery into bite-sized digestible aesthetic loops. The trend, they said, reduced complex systems of belief and heritage into memeable content with no context. The counter-argument? That was the point. Italian Brainrot is post-everything, post-irony, post-demeaning, post-sincerity. It's not trying to say something. It's showing that everything says something even when it's just a crocodile screaming in a confessional booth. Parents, teachers, and the institutional panic while the internet embraced the Rot with open, gloved hands. Institutions didn't quite know how to handle it. Teachers began reporting strange behavior. Students writing Pasquale was right on whiteboards. Choirs trying to sing backward Latin phrases from Rot clips. Philosophy essays referencing Don Luca as if he were a real philosopher. One UK school issued an internal memo banning the use of the phrase tutti frutti explosion, Adel Vaticano, after a student screamed it during a fire drill. Another banned the playing of Rot soundtracks during lunch hour, citing mass confusion and irreverent spiritual unrest. Parents were confused. What was this thing their children were obsessed with? Why was their daughter crying over a coffee-headed ballerina? Why did their son start referring to spaghetti as forbidden pasta? Why was everyone yelling, Signora Mozzarella has betrayed us? Articles flooded parenting blogs. Terms like I-induced dissociation and hyper-mime identity cycles began showing up in headlines. No one had answers. The only certainty was this. Whatever Italian Brainrot was, it had already taken hold and it wasn't going away quietly. Satire, or satire of satire? One of the most enduring questions about Italian Brainrot is deceptively simple. Is it a joke? Or a joke about the joke no one really knows? And that's the beauty of it. In many ways, the rot reflects the state of culture itself in 2025. Oversaturated, overanalyzed, self-referential to the point of implosion. Italian Brainrot doesn't resist the chaos, it becomes it. It mocks seriousness by being dead serious. It mocks reverence by creating its own saints. It mocks storytelling by offering too much lore that leads nowhere. Some believe it's an artistic movement in disguise, a new dadaism for the algorithmic age. Others think it's just kids being weird online. Some quietly nervously believe it's the future of all content. But one thing is certain. You can tell if Italian Brainrot is being ironic or not. Because it's not choosing. It's everything at once. It is the scream. It is the silence. It is the three-legged shark limping through Vatican rain with a rosary in its teeth. And it's yelling at you to feel something. At the heart of Italian Brainrot lies a peculiar magic trick. Something so absurd, so throwaway, so obviously nonsense, ends up feeling real. Real characters, real mythology, real emotion. You start by laughing at a ballerina with a cappuccino cup for a head and 2 hours later, you re-deepen a TikTok comment thread debating whether Don Luca actually betrayed Pasquale during the Vatican incident of 1987. Welcome to the age of lorecore, new kind of storytelling born from AI memes and collective delusion. Italian Brainrot didn't just ride the wave of lorecore, it was the wave. AI is muse, monster, and meme generator. To understand how Brainrot evolved, you have to understand the tools behind it. The bulk of Italian Brainrot content is built with a cocktail of AI platforms. VEO3 Midjourney. 4. Hyper-detailed, uncanny images of crocodiles in trench coats. Crying saints and espresso-stained angels, Leaven Labs. For those bizarre, smoky, semi-Italian voiceovers that echo through your skull like a cursed sermon. CapCut, splice, runway. 2. Quickly loop, glitch, and layer these elements into hypnotic TikToks. AI wasn't just a means of production, it was the creative engine. Brainrot embraced AI's weirdest instincts. The way it mashed together Catholic architecture with nightclub lasers, or how it rendered facial expressions that were just a bit too human. The uncanny valley became the aesthetic. Early meme trends used AI to imitate reality. Brainrot used it to create new realities, ones that made no sense but still felt right. This wasn't about fooling people into thinking something was real. It was about making people wish it was. And that's where lorecore came in. What is lorecore? Lorecore is a meme subgenre where the fiction becomes more real than the joke. It's when meme culture embraces storytelling not through traditional narratives, but through fragmented world-building, hints, contradictions, and community speculation. Italian Brainrot lives here, never has a single plot. It has hundreds of implied ones. There is no confirmed lore, yet thousands of people agree that Tralala lost his leg in the Vatican War. No official creator ever said that. Bombardiero Crocodilo was Pasquale's brother, but that fact is widely accepted as canon. The lore isn't written, it's discovered, built by fans in comment sections, reinforced through duets, expanded via new videos with new characters. Everyone becomes a co-author. Lorecore treats fiction like archaeology. Every meme is a fragment, every voice line a clue, every image another relic from a story too big to be fully known. Not talk in YouTube. Modern myth-making machines in ancient times. Stories were passed orally around campfires. Then came books, then radio, then film. Now, lore lives in TikTok loops. Italian Brainrot is the perfect example of this. It uses the TikTok medium as a myth engine, spreading ideas in fragments. No single video ever tells the full story, but the audience puts it together anyway. They argue about timelines, they write essays in the comments, they draw fan art, they remix audio, They correct each other on canon. On YouTube, Brainrot content expanded into long-form lore-explicable videos, mockumentaries detailing fictional histories, character betrayals, and fake interviews with survivors of the mozzarella explosion. These videos treat the meme as if it were a historical fact. And audiences treat it seriously, commenting with personal theories and "I remember when" anecdotes about events that never happened. It's like watching the rise of a religion, except the prophet is a three-legged shark in Air Jordans. Community storytelling. Comment sections is canon. What makes Italian Brainrot specifically so powerful is the community-driven nature of the storytelling. The audience doesn't just consume, they co-create. Every comment is potential canon. One user writes, "Pasquale didn't scream because he was scared, he screamed because he remembered." Another replies, "That's why Bombardiero never forgave him." A third adds, "Ballerina Cappuccino warned them, but no one listened." Then someone draws it. Then someone animates it. Then someone remixes the voiceover to say Pasquale knew. In a minor key while playing laughy beats. Now it's real not in the traditional sense, but in the sense that it matters. It lives in people's heads. It creates emotional responses. It gets remembered. That's what lore is. It's the language of decay. Rot as internet grammar. Italian Brainrot and lorecore more broadly uses a distinct aesthetic language. It's not polished. It's not clean. It's not consistent. It's rotting. And that rot is the point. Glitches become punctuation. Static becomes silence. Repeats become ritual. Incoherence becomes mood. In other words, the visual and sonic decay mirrors the thematic decay of meaning, of narrative, of memory. You're not supposed to follow every detail. You're supposed to feel it. Like a memory from a dream, or a story you were told when you were too young to understand but never forgot. This is the new internet grammar. Not linear, not logical, liminal, emotional, fragmented, intimate, and often deeply funny. Why lorecore works there is a reason. Lorecore and Brainrot hit so hard in 2025, and it's not just the memes. People are overwhelmed. The world is loud, fast, contradictory, and confusing. Lorecore doesn't try to fix that. It mirrors it. But instead of despair, it offers play. But in a world of infinite content, Lorecore says, you don't have to understand everything. Just believe in something, even if it's a screaming cappuccino ballerina with knives for feet. It invites participation. It rewards curiosity. It blurs the line between creator and audience. And it proves that even in chaos, there's structure. Even in nonsense, there's emotion. Even in rot, there is lore. The rise of rotcore as an art movement. As Italian Brainrot matured, some artists and meme theorists began to argue that it had transcended memhood. It wasn't just a joke anymore. It was a new form of collaborative art. Rotcore, lorecore, meme gothic. Post-internet surrealism. It wasn't ironic detachment, it was sincere absurdity. And for many Gen Z and Alpha creators, it was the most honest form of expression they'd ever found. Why write a novel when you can make a 3-second TikTok where a crocodile says Pasquale saw too much, and let the audience do the rest? Conclusion. Lore is the loop. Italian Brainrot didn't give us stories. It gave us fragments, glimpses into a shared hallucination, co-authored by thousands, unfolding in comments, stitches, duets, edits, and screams. It showed us that in the digital age, lore isn't told, it's looped. And if you listen closely between the static, the church bells, and the AI muttering in broken Latin, you'll hear it. Pasquale didn't die in vain, because we remember the scream. Italian Brainrot is not just something you see or hear. It's something that happens to you. You don't scroll past it. You fall into it. A loop becomes a ritual. A voice becomes a chant. A meme becomes memory. Before you know it, you're quoting fictional wars, theorizing about espresso-based conspiracies, and whispering Pasquale knew under your breath like it's your birthright. But why? Why has something so nonsensical, so incoherent, and so obviously absurd taken such a deep root in so many minds? The answer lies somewhere between psychology, technology, chaos, and comfort. Rot as comfort in a chaotic world. We live in strange times. Global uncertainty, information overload, social media burnout, war, climate collapse, rent, notifications, deadlines, doom scrolling. Everything is loud, fast, and stressful. And in the middle of it all, a voice crackles out. Tralero, tralalador, Tornado dal Vaticano, con il sangue del futuro. Dad. Voice, however bizarre, feels safe because it doesn't mean anything. Italian Brainrot is comfort through absurdity. In a world that demands attention, productivity, and coherence, Brainrot offers a blissful escape into nonsense. No context, no goals, just pure digital surrealism. It's not escapism in the traditional sense, where the repetition becomes rhythm, the nonsense becomes lullaby, characters become friends, and the scream becomes prayer. The psychology of rot, why the brain likes nonsense? There's a deeper mechanism at work here. Your brain loves patterns. It also loves novelty. Italian Brainrot gives it both a butt in unexpected ways. Familiarity. Repetition of phrases like Pasquale Nuova or Esplosioni del Vaticano triggers a sense of recognition and emotional comfort. Surprise. The unpredictable visuals jolt your dopamine system, making you laugh or recoil or both. Low stakes. There's no pressure to get it. You're not failing to understand. You're participating just by watching. Looping. Endless repetition trains your brain to absorb the rot on a subconscious level, like a song chorus you didn't mean to learn. This psychological cocktail makes brain rot sticky. It's not just virals, residually viral. You may forget what you watched, but you'll remember the feeling, the vibe, the rot. And that's all it needs to survive. Rot loops as digital lullabies. There is a term that has gained traction in rot fan communities. Digital lullaby. It describes the feeling of putting on a rot video not to be entertained, but to be soothed. Despite the chaos, the sound design, the drama, there's a hypnotic stillness to it all. You play the loop, it plays you. And as the voice drones, the opera swells, and the visuals glitch, you find yourself relaxing. Brainrot becomes the modern equivalent of white noise. Only instead of rain sounds or whale songs, it's Signora Mozzarella, Hatradito, Pasquale, E il cielo, non ha dimenticato. It's funny, it's ridiculous, but it works. TikTok creators started uploading sleep-friendly rot, edits slower tempos, softer voiceovers, visual fades. Some even play these on loop while working, meditating, or falling asleep. Others stitch their own versions, creating entire ASMR rot universes. The rot went from chaos to comfort object. Memes as emotional rebellion. Italian Brainrot isn't just entertainment, it's resistance. Against what? Against coherence? Against perfection? Against capitalism? Against algorithms that want content neat and sellable. Brainrot is the anti-brand, the anti-polish, anti-influencer. It mocks the system by feeding it something broken and watching it thrive. And that in itself becomes an emotional rebellion. It's saying, I don't want your clean, curated content. I want a cappuccino-headed ballerina threatening the Pope with a switchblade. Because the real world is already too real. Brainrot is where you go to laugh, cry, scream, and rot in peace. The commodification of the rot, but nothing stays pure online. It's not even nonsense. By spring 2025, Italian Brainrot had begun to monetize itself. And just like everything else, the rot became a brand. Merch. Pasquale screamed first t-shirts, ballerina cappuccina plush toys, trench coats with the phrase Esplosioni del Vaticano stitched into the lining. I generated saints and sinners sold as digital collectibles. Trolero, Trolela, minted and auctioned as a religious artifact of the metaverse. Meme coins. Dollar rot coin launched within 72 hours. Still, the phrase invest in mozzarella trended worldwide. Collabs. A clothing brand released a rot-themed line titled Vestiti del Peccato. The drop sold out in 3 minutes. Fans were divided. Some embraced the chaos becoming cash. Others saw it as sacrilege, selling the very thing that mocked being sold. But the rot had no opinion. It simply kept looping. Why the format keeps feeding itself. Italian Brainrot survives not because of a central creator, but because of its format. It's viral by design. Short videos equals easy to consume, easier to repost. Distinct visuals equals instant recognition. Audio hooks equals repeatable and remixable. Low barrier to entry equals anyone can make a Brainrot video. And most importantly, the lore is open source. Anyone can add to it. Anyone can build a new character, remix an old sound, redraw a mythic moment. The rot doesn't gatekeep, it spreads. It is the fungus of meme culture, resilient, adaptive, and weirdly beautiful. The rot is a reflection of us. Italian Brainrot isn't about Italy or sharks or saints or even Pasquale. It's about us, our fractured attention spans, our need for meaning in meaninglessness, our exhaustion, our humor, our yearning for community, even if it's around something stupid. It's a reminder that we're all online, all the time, desperate for something that feels alive. Something we can yell about, laugh at, cry over, something we can share. And in that shared absurdity, something strange happened. The rot became real. We don't escape the rot, we become it. By now you've probably already felt it. The moment when the joke stops being funny and starts feeling familiar. You don't just watch Italian Brainrot anymore. You speak its language. You hum its sounds. You reference its characters. You defend its lore. Close your eyes and see a trench-coated crocodile under yellow streetlight whispering secrets to a statue. You've looped too many times, you've rotted. And you like it. By mid-2025, Italian Brainrot had looped itself into the bloodstream of the internet. It had infected timelines, escaped the confines of TikTok, become folklore, been memed, monetized, and ritualized. And yet, with all this noise, one question began to bubble up through the glitchy choir of cappuccino screams and crocodile war cries. Where does it go from here? Does Italian Brainrot collapse into irrelevance, like every other viral trend? Does it evolve into something newer, stranger, more unhinged? Or does it transcend trend status entirely and become a permanent fixture in the architecture of online culture, our digital gargoyle, watching from the rafters? Let's peer into the espresso-stained crystal ball and explore what lies ahead for the rot. Spin-offs and subgenres, the rise of global rot. Italian Brainrot may have set the tone, but it didn't take long for regional variants to emerge. These weren't mere parodies, they were love letters in a different dialect of nonsense. They followed the same rot formula. E-generated chaos, broken lore, looping madness, but filtered through new cultural lenses. Romanian rot, Orthodox saints glitching in snowy villages, vampire-like priests named Vassal the Veiled, and AI voices whispering, "Do not trust the cabbage." French Corgalo, chain-smoking poets with bleeding berets, wine-tinted rain, and operatic screams from invisible baguette phantoms. The phrase La Ballerine Est and Mong Song trended for a week. Tunisian techno-saints, neon mosques, glitchy call to prayer remixes, prophets with chrome limbs, and suspended in the desert sky. A character named Habibi, Ixi, claimed to have hacked paradise. These spin-offs didn't replace Italian Brainrot, they expanded the rot universe. Shared characters began to travel between genres. Fan artists created multi-ret crossovers. TikTokers started using hashtags like #rotverse and #lore migration. Even Pasquale began appearing in French and Arabic scripts, always screaming, always doomed. The rot, it seemed, had no borders. Will the rot evolve or collapse under its own weight? Like any viral genre, Brainrot teeters on a knife's edge between evolution and implosion. The danger of saturation is real. By July 2025, some creators began to complain. It's all just trench coats and saints now. Every new character is just a remix of Don Luca, but with more pigeons. Squally's death has been retconned 14 times in 1 week. Fatigue sets in. Even nonsense has a shelf life, but the genre's strength is its flexibility. Unlike traditional storytelling, it thrives on broken rules, shifting canon, and community expansion. Its very lack of definition is what lets it reinvent itself endlessly. For Brainrot to survive, it doesn't need to reinvent its format. It just needs to keep inviting others to play. And if it does fade, it won't be a death, it'll be a loop. Brainrot is nothing if not cyclical. Every few months, Pasquale will rise again because rot never truly ends. Community archiving, saving the rot before it decays. Realizing the fragility of the trend, fans began working to preserve its madness. A number of initiatives sprang up. The Brainrot Archives, a community-led digital museum cataloging every major character, soundbite, fan theory, and remix. hosted across Tumblr, GitHub, and Google Drive folders titled Do Not OPEN Too Much Rot. Rot Wiki, a lore wiki containing timelines, character bios, fake historical events, and pages dedicated entirely to decoding single voice lines. Rotsine's PDF magazines created monthly, collecting the best art, memes, essays, unhinged rot poetry from across platforms, IRL exhibits. One group in Berlin hosted an actual Italian Brainrot exhibition in a church-turned gallery. It featured stained glass renderings of Tralalero, Tralala, and looping projections of ballerina Cappuccina dancing on a glitching altar. These archiving efforts weren't just about nostalgia, they were a declaration. This mattered. It's not because it made sense, but because it made people feel something. It's art, that's culture. Even when it's delivered by an AI croc named Bombardiro? Could it become a mainstream animation, game, or series? This question haunted every rot creator. Would the mainstream ruin it? Some industry scouts sniffed around the rot. Rumors swirled about a streaming platform commissioning an Italian Brainrot animated short series. One startup reportedly pitched a roguelike video game titled Pasquale's Last Loop, where you played as various saints trying to survive a crumbling Vatican. The beauty of Brainrot is in its chaos, its non-linearity, its audience participation. Could a formalized version work? Or would it sterilise the madness? Still, smaller experimental creators began to push the boundaries. Interactive rot choose-your-own-adventure TikToks, RGs based around hidden messages and rot videos, AI-generated novels written entirely in the voice of Father Emilio, structured like confessionals from the beyond. If Brainrot is to break into mainstream formats, it won't look like a traditional show or game. It'll look like a glitching cathedral where you, the viewer, are part of the delusion. Final thoughts? The rot isn't dying. Its reincarnating Italian Brainrot was never about Italy. Were cappuccino-headed ballerinas. It was about chaos, community, comfort, and the strange modern need to find meaning in nonsense. To build cathedrals out of glitch filters. To crown saints who never existed. To scream Pasquale Nui. And have the internet scream back in agreement. It was about finding a shared hallucination and living in it together. And like any good religion, like any good meme, like any good fever dream, it doesn't die. It just finds new forms. Tomorrow, it might be Moroccan Brainrot. Next year, maybe it'll be set on Mars, but the essence will remain. The looping scream, the tragic saints, the espresso prophecies, the beautiful, nonsensical decay. So if you ever feel the world is too much, if reality seems too loud and logic too sharp, just press play. Let the voice echo once more. Pasquale Nuu, tornado, ma nana lo stesso, and you'll know. The rot lives on.